hot. Am I blushing? Hi, family. My name is Gloria, and I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is January 11th of 2013, and I'm so grateful for that. I'm so grateful for the women and men that have gone before me and saved me a seat. And I wanted to mention that because I didn't know I was an alcoholic, but when I got here, I found out that I was one. I kind of knew in the back of my mind that I was, but when I got here, you know, the men and women just showed me, you know, what to do and how to do it. One of the things that I'm grateful for is that you introduced me to a God that I still don't understand, you know, but I love and I adore the God that I do have. I want to thank Fran. I'm not sure where she went, but thank you for asking me to speak. It is a true privilege to be able to speak with my husband, and those of you who know him as Iron Mike, and he speaks all across the country, so I'm super glad I get to go first. Really happy about that. You know, I have a home group, the Ladies Laporte group. I have some ladies here that are from that is my home group. They know that's my home group because I'm actively involved and I hold a service position. I have a sponsor. She knows that I'm her sponsee. Sometimes I have to call and remind her that I am because she hadn't heard from me in a few. So I'll call her and I'm like, I just want to remind you that you're still my sponsor, and we laugh and then we get on to business. Like we hadn't missed a beat. And that's how this program is that whenever and wherever, you know, I have someone to call, and I called her before I came up. And she goes, let me get you right-sized. Yes, when Fran asked me to come, I was like, yes, of course, because, you know, we don't say no to AA. I was like, yes. And then the next thought, the hamster wheel started. And I was like, oh my God, how do I get out of this? Can I break a leg? You know, am I gonna get sick? Like, how do I get out of this? So I'm telling my sponsor this. She's like, you know, let's get you right-sized. Because she loves to tell me how self-centered I am, you know, and and so I'm here to say, you know, what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. The last time I spoke, I was on my knees, and I was just like, God, what do I do? How do I do this? You know, it's so scary to be up here in front of you, that it is my self-centered fear. You know, what are you going to think about me? You know, am I going to do okay? Am I going to embarrass myself? You know, how is this all going to turn out? And, you know, he reminded me that I should be shouting from the rooftops what Alcoholics Anonymous has done for me. And now I'm standing here today, a sober woman, and that I couldn't live without a drink in my body 11 years ago. I could not. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, I had alcohol in my body. So I was raised in an alcoholic home, and my mom since has, you know, she celebrated 42 years of sobriety, so she's got a little bit of time. But during my younger years, I was raised with her in the bar. She always left a phone number, like, here's where I'm gonna be. And she left a grocery account so that if I got hungry, I could go charge something to eat. So, you know, I remember when I was little calling her at the bar, and she said, oh, I'll be right home, I'll be right home. And you know what? She never did. She never came home. You know, I was fast asleep by the time she got home. And I do remember, you know, her coming home drunk, and I had the stepfather that I absolutely adored. But they would drink, and then they would fight, and then the cops would come, you know, the norm. And I remember this one specific night that she was trying to call the police. And it was the old dial-up phones. You know, she was trying to dial, and she was falling off the chair. And I didn't know what to make of that until later on in life. I realized exactly what was going on there. But at that time, I was just a scared little girl. And I remember just being scared and lonely for a long, long time. I know that I was uncomfortable in my skin at the very beginning. I remember that I wanted to be seen, but I didn't want to be seen. You know, I remember in the 3rd grade, I was just telling someone earlier, I wore heels in 3rd grade. I remember climbing the fence to go to, you know, to school. And so those are things that, hello, I want you to see me, that a normal child wouldn't do. But then again, if I was late for the bus, and I saw or I heard the bus, and I hadn't been at the bus stop yet, I would hide, because I didn't want anybody to see me walk up and get on the bus or draw attention to myself. So I had a mix of emotions going on from the beginning. I remember my first drink. I remember possibly my first drink. I don't know if it was or if it wasn't, but in school, I was a chameleon. I just went with different groups, and I didn't have any enemies. I just kind of floated from group to group, and wanted to be okay with everybody. And so that's what I did. I was a chameleon. You want me to be a cowgirl? I'm a cowgirl. If you want me to be, you know, back in the day they were called cholas, and you know, they had lowrider cars, and that was that too. Like, I was just all over the board. This girl asked me to go spend the night at her house. And I remember not really wanting to, but you know, I think back then it was even hard to have boundaries. I was like, yes, when I really wanted to say no. So when and by this time my mom and my stepdad had been divorced. He just disappeared one day, and I just never saw him again. And I walk into her house, and my stepdad's sitting in a recliner. And I was taken back by it. And I remember just not knowing what to think about that, and not knowing what to say to him or anything like that. So like the good little alcoholic I am, you know, her brother had some Jack Daniels, and I was willing. I wanted to change the way I felt so bad. And so that's the first time I got drunk. I blacked out. Threw up, did all of those things. And I don't remember wanting to do it again, but my mom did pick me up, and at this time she was sober. And I'm sure I just reeked, you know, absolutely just reeked of it. And I remember being in front of the fireplace just feeling so sick. I can't say, oh, I wanted to do it again. I don't know if I did or I didn't. But I do know that the remainder of my teenage years were rough, and I was probably 12 then. My mom decided that she wanted to leave, and she was going to marry this man and move out of state, and I moved in with a family that I knew, and I started, and mind you, I'm not going to school. I'm not doing any of those things. This is probably why she wanted to leave. She couldn't control me. I'd be ditching school. My friend would go to school, and I'd walk to her house, and I'd stay at her house while she was in school. And I'd kick back, and I'd turn on the TV, and I'd watch TV, and Urban Cowboy came on, the film. And I don't know if anybody of you know Urban Cowboy, but you know, John Travolta's buddy and Deborah Winger's sissy. And it all revolves around Gilly's Bar in Pasadena, you know, where there's a lot of drinking and fighting and dancing and all of those things, and riding the bull. And I remember I must have been 11 years old, and I sat there and I'm watching this movie, and I'm like, you know, and they lived in a trailer park, and you know, all of these things, and they were fighting all the time, and a lot of drinking. And I remember thinking, I want a buddy, you know, and he was beating the hell out of her, and you know, all this stuff's going on. And I'm 11 years old, 12 years old, and I'm thinking, that's the kind of life I want. And it's just astonishing to me that that looked good to me at such a young age. So my mom left, and I went to live with this family, and I wasn't going to school. And when I did go to school, it was like this little country school, and I'd have full makeup on because, you know, I was 12 or 13 thinking I was, you know, 20. And although I did look older, you know, so I would go to school like that. Mind you, I want to be noticed, but I don't want to be noticed. You know, I want you to see me because I felt like I was never seen. I want you to see me, but I'm just a scared little girl inside. So I ended up getting together with one of the older brothers, and I became pregnant. And I had this little girl, and she's now in my life. I gave her up for adoption. But what I didn't know is that was gonna send me on a path of full destruction. And I remember laying in the hospital with that little girl, getting ready to give her over. And it was drizzling outside, and I was looking out the window. And I was so sad. I was just so sad, but I knew in my heart that I was doing the right thing because I was so young. There was just no way. And the dad was out there, and you had to be out there if, you know, you're 19 and you're hooking up with a 13, 14-year-old, you know. But, and so that's what I did, and that sent me on a run. And I didn't know it at the time. I didn't find out that it was a run until I got into sobriety, but I ran far and I ran fast. And, you know, I was just a tornado roaring through people's lives. I was angry. And so the drink was helping me, you know, and then other substances were helping me. And I was hanging out with this older crowd, and, you know, they just got out of prison. And I'm still this little kid hanging out with these prison guys, and that's what I wanted to do. That's what I wanted to do, and not coming home, and so I think that when I was running as far and as fast as I could, I would ended up in sordid places. You know, I remember this one time my mom brought this girl home, and she was trying to help her from AA, and we ended up talking, and she's like, "Let's go." And I'm like, "Okay, I'll go." And so we ended up leaving and running away. And during that time, you know, I was brutally raped, and I came home after a few weeks, and my mom wasn't there to greet me at the airport. She went to an AA function. And the whole time of this, not my mother's journey, and I kind of understand it now that I'm a woman of Alcoholics Anonymous, but I didn't understand it then. It was like alcohol took my mom, and then Alcoholics Anonymous took my mom, you know? And so when she wasn't there to greet me at the airport, that was just one other thing that that was kind of a feeling of abandonment for me. You know, she went to an AA retreat, and I understand that, you know, she had to do what she had to do. I understand that now, but I didn't understand it then, and it was very hurtful. So I'm running hard and I'm running fast. And I end up in the rooms of Alcoholics. I'm about 14 years old. And I remember being happy. It was like, you know, I was kind of raised in the rooms. I was in and out, you know, of this fellowship hall that my mom would, you know, take me to. And, you know, I knew everybody there because they'd be at my house, so I felt at home there. And so I remember getting 90 days of sobriety. And me and some other people decided that we were going to go out. That, you know, I don't know how much time they had or anything like that, but we thought it was a good idea at the time. And I ended up being held hostage by a couple guys, and I could not leave. And one would go to work and one would guard me. And so the one that was guarding me finally started feeling sorry for me. And he let me make a phone call, and he let me leave before the other guy returned, and I got out of there. And only by the grace of God, only by the grace of God. And after that, of course, I keep running and gunning and going on my merry way. And I remember sitting at a counselor's office, and I'm jaundiced, and I'm sick, and she's like, "Are you ready to do something?" And at that moment, she caught me at a good time, because I said, yes, I want to do something. And so they sent me to, I'm from California, so they sent me to the desert. And I went to this teenage alcohol recovery house that was a year-long program. Well, I ended up there for 6 months because, I like to fraternize. So they had to kick me out. But yeah, so after that, I went back and I lived with my mom, and I was going to AA, and I was going to dances, and I was having a good time. I had a buddy that, came with me from the recovery house because she got kicked out too, and her mom's like, "No, you're not coming home." So she came home with us, and we had the best time. And what I gained from looking back at that is that when you're not working the steps, and you're just having a good time, and your self will run riot, although I didn't think so, that, sanity hadn't returned for me. I didn't have anything between me and that drink. And I remember I was 16, and this is how I remember it, because I was working at a deli, and I was 16, my dad bought me a new car, and I decided, you know what? A drink sounds good. So I got my sister's ID. One of the girls that I worked with, we went off, and I got drunk that night. That night, I totaled my car. I lost my job because I couldn't show up, and my mom kicked me out of the house. So that was a rude awakening for me. And I tried to go back to AA. It was just like kind of back and forth, and I could just never get it. I just never could get it. And so, as my life went on, I was drinking, I was using, and I met my first husband. And he partied like I did, so we got along great. And I ended up pregnant. And for some reason, only by God's grace, we just both stopped. We just stopped. And we got married, and we decided we were going to raise this child, and after that, three more sons came along, 2 other sons came along, so I had 3 sons, and I was going to church, and I was active in the kids' lives, and all this stuff was going on, and I ended up running into a friend from high school, and so her kids were my kids' age. We started hanging out, and then, margaritas started flowing. So that set off the phenomenon of craving for me, and I didn't know that it set me off. I just thought I was having a good time, and everybody else was just stupid, or, it was about me and my needs and my wants, and y'all are holding me back. And I ended up getting a divorce from that man, and before that, I was drinking margaritas with my friend, and the next door neighbor started looking cute to me. So I got divorced, got with the next door neighbor, married him, and so on. So I'm drinking, and I'm holding on to a job, and I'm barely holding on to this job. And I remember being in my cubicle, and I'd lay my jacket down on my brakes, and I would sleep, trying to recoup from whatever it is I was doing the night before. And pretty soon I was calling in sick, and all of those things that happened. So I would go to the bars, and I remember divorcing him, and moving on and doing all of that. And I remember going to the bars and having a drink. I'm just going to go for happy hour. I'm just going to go for a drink, happy hour. Then I'm going to go home and make dinner and do all of those things. At this point, I'm a single mom, and that one drink turned into closing down the bar. And I didn't know how I got there, but I really didn't care. I really didn't care. I didn't know that I thought I had changed my mind. I thought that I had changed my mind, that didn't realize it was, as soon as I took that drink, that the alcoholism was changing my mind. I thought I was, I'm having a good time. There's no reason to go home now, or I'll get to it later. I'm going to finish this drink, and someone buys me a drink, and of course I got to, finish that drink. I can't leave it on the table, or something happens, a song comes on, I want to listen to this song. Whatever the case is, I think I'm changing my mind and I'm rolling with it, when the truth is that I've come to learn in Alcoholics Anonymous is that as soon as that alcohol hits my body, that phenomenon of craving sets in, and I can't stop. But I don't know that. I think I'm changing my mind. I don't know that that one drink leads to 20, or one drink leads to me not coming home, and that I don't go home to make dinner. I don't go home to see if the kids have done their homework. I don't go home to, check on everybody, make sure they're home, whatever. I'm kind of doing the same thing that my mom did, except I had a cell phone. They could call me on my cell phone, So I'm repeating the pattern, and I always tried to live that double life, where this is what I want you to see and this is what's really going on, and the front is that, I had money. At this time I had a really successful career, and I lived in a beautiful home. I always had beautiful homes, I had motorhomes, boats, I had all this stuff so that it would appear that I'm okay and I'm good and I'm successful and all these things. And inside, I'm running the streets. I'm not coming home. I'm not being accountable. I'm a terrible mom. I'm all of these things. But, I have this successful job, and I think I've arrived. I have this very prestigious job. Only 600 people in the country have this job, and I get this office, it has a peekaboo of the ocean. My name's outside the door, and I'm like, I've arrived. This is it. Like, I'm it. And I remember, my manager asked me, she's like, do you want to be, in this office, or would you like to be in that office? Because there's not a whole lot of people in that office. I was like, you know what? I'm okay with that. I'll take that office, because you know what? I was mixing drinks at 9 a.m. and snorting substances off my, desk, and thinking I had arrived. And inside I'm dying, So, with that, I'm barely holding on to that job, and I know I'm barely holding on to this job. And I end up landing this contact, which everybody in the Carmel Valley was trying to get. It was a huge real estate firm. And I was going in to do a presentation. So I go in, I have contact with this lady, and we're going back and forth, and my manager's praising me. She's like, oh my gosh, we have not been able to do this. We've never had a foot in the door. I'm so happy about this. Do you need any help? Do you want me to? And no, I got this. Well, the night before, I start to celebrate, Needless to say, I don't make that meeting. I don't show up. I don't call, because I took a drink to celebrate, and the rest was history. And I didn't show up to that job for a while. And so she called me into her office. And I go in, and this is the story I told everybody. Oh, you know what? We had discussed it. It just wasn't working out. No, I got fired from that job. She did not want me back. I wasn't producing. I wasn't doing anything. I wasn't holding up my end of the bargain, any of those things. So she had to let me go. But that was, that was something that I told my sisters and my brothers. Oh, it just wasn't working out. We came to this mutual decision. So I'm running and gunning, and I'm back in my hometown, and my dad still had some rental property there, and and I'm in the middle of my disease. Now I'm unemployed, and I'm living in these little, that they call them little crack shacks. I went from this $1 million house to a little crack shack, and homeless people would, come by, and some of them I knew. I went to school with them, and I was better than them because they were living in a tent and I was living in this little, I had a roof over my head. And my mom asked me, you know what, honey, why don't you go pick up the rents for me, and make the deposit? Absolutely, Mom, happy to do it. I am happy to do it. So I would, and most of the deposit went in, most of the deposit. And I didn't, when I was going through my 4th and 5th step with my sponsor, I was like, yeah, I borrowed this money. And she's like, no, it's called embezzlement. You embezzled. The delusion of what I was doing. I was in full flight, delusional. And I used that for a long time until I couldn't. I had to call a spade, and I had to really look at myself and get honest. But I did not realize, how powerless I was. And I think the changing point, that moment of clarity that God gave me came through my youngest son. I was in that little crack shack, and I've been drinking 24/7. Alcohol was not giving me the freedom anymore. There was no freedom, just bondage. It was my master. I didn't get that sense of ease and comfort anymore. I didn't get that freedom. I didn't get any of it. I was trying to get it back, and it would just never come. And I remember him walking in, and I can't imagine my kids. I go from, my double life of looking successful and having all of these things to having nothing, my kids looking at, a woman that's a go-getter, that is full of self-confidence and all of those things. And the truth is that I was always so scared, and I always had a drink. I always had to have a drink in me to do anything at the end. So he walks in and he says, Mom, and he's looking at me, and I'm probably 110 pounds. I'm sure I was drinking because I just hadn't stopped at that point. I couldn't. I couldn't be social anymore. I was alone in this little house. And he said, where's that woman I know? Where's that successful, wonderful woman that I know is my mother? And I looked at him straight in the eyes and I said, I don't know. I don't know. And he left that day. And God gave me a moment of clarity. And I saw this vision. There was a Y in the road. And this was the thought. I'm going to go to Kansas to go see my brother, my oldest brother. Meanwhile, all of my siblings and I were on okay terms, The only thing that I've done to them, which I didn't think I did anything to them, is like I stole their serenity. They were always worried about me, always praying for me. So I knew that I could go to my older brother in Kansas, and that he would nurse me back to health, and he would help me get on my feet, and I would be able to drink. This is in the back of my mind. I'd be able to drink. I already know that. And then going to the left on this Y, I was going to end up in the tent right there at the railroad track, selling my body. I knew it. I saw it. It was coming. And so I called my mom, and I said, I'm going to go see Dawn. And I'm like, but I don't have a car. So what does my good codependent mother do? She buys a car, has it delivered to me. And then I'm like, okay, well, I'll probably leave in a couple days. And she's like, okay. So a couple days pass, and she calls me, have you left yet? No, I haven't left yet, because I still can't. I want to do it, but I keep taking the drink and can't do it. So she's like, you know what, I think I'll go with you. You know, come pick me up on your way out. And I said, okay, I'll be there tomorrow. You know, my mom sat with her bag packed. My sister told me this, my mom didn't tell me. She'd go check on my mom every day, and she'd be sitting in her rocker with her bag packed waiting for me to show up. And I didn't show up for a good while. And a day I did show up. And I picked her up, and I picked her up late, of course, couldn't be on time. And the tire was flat on the car. And so we had to fix the tire. So I said, you know what, why don't we just go to my house and we'll spend the night, because I'm thinking I need to drink. I need to get a hold of so-and-so, get this. I'm trying to rearrange everything in my mind. And she's like, no, I think we'll just go on. And I'm thinking to myself, why doesn't she want to go stay with me? And now that I'm sober, looking back, my mom is going to go stay at a little crack shack with me? Like, my mom's not going to do that, but I think it's a good idea because I'm in full flight, I'm delusional. And so we start going on this trip, and we're going to stop in the desert. My sister lives in Palm Desert, and she's got 17 years of sobriety. And we're going to stop there and stay a couple days and make our way on. Well, they already had a plan. I wasn't going anywhere. You know, they had already determined that. But, you know, I don't know that. But what I do know is that once I get my mom in the car, I can't drink. That's it. And I was worried. I was really worried. But something happened is that when I had my hometown in my rearview mirror and headed out, the obsession for alcohol had left. And the desire didn't leave. Like, I still thought, oh, I'm gonna drink again, but I know that I'm with my mom and I'm going to my sober sister's house and I'm not gonna be able to drink, and that's good. The obsession left. I wasn't obsessing over it at all. And we get to my sister's, and my mom says, you know what, it's really bad in Kansas right now. It's really cold. And I'm in Palm Desert, and there's palm trees, and there's sunshine, and I'm like, okay, well, we can stay for a little while. What I did know is that I wanted to get some kind of help. I wanted to work the 12 steps, but not AA, because I could not admit I was an alcoholic. Could not, did not want to. Because I knew at that point, if I did, I was gonna have to do something about it. Because my mom, she didn't take a drink. You know, she picked up one Desire chip, my sister one Desire chip, my brother one Desire chip, so I knew if I was going in, that was it. So I knew that working the 12 step was gonna change my life. I just wanted the monkey off my back. I was so tired. I was tired of running. I was tired of all of this stuff. So I went to Al-Anon. And it just wasn't a good fit for me. It just wasn't. I'm like, those people are depressed. Nothing against you, Al-Anons. I love you. I understand now, but when you got, you know, like 5 days under your belt, you're not wanting to hear anything. But what happened is that my sister of 17 years of sobriety was going to this really early meeting, and I wasn't sleeping anyways, you know? So, and I felt, this is my delusion, this is not the truth. She's got 17 years of sobriety, she doesn't need anything from me, nothing. But somehow my little delusional head, that she needed my support to go to that meeting. She had been going to that meeting for years, she did not need my support, but I thought that. So I started going to this meeting with her. And in this meeting, you would go around, they do it different there, you know. You go around the room and introduce yourself. And I would introduce myself as, I'm Gloria, I'm here to support my sister, I'm Gloria, whatever it was, I never said I was an alcoholic. I'm here, family support, you know, whatever, but never an alcoholic. And one day, went around the room and I said, I'm Gloria, I'm an alcoholic. And the lady in back of me, my first resentment, she says, it's about time. Everybody knew it but me. That was my first resentment. I'm like, how dare her? And so I went on this journey knowing that I wanted to work the steps, not afraid to work the steps. I wanted to get better. And I didn't know what all that entailed, but I knew that once I picked up a drink, I couldn't stop. That looking at my life, it was definitely unmanageable, and I needed help. So, I don't suggest this, but I went through a few sponsors in the beginning because, I knew better than them. And one of the problems is that I compared everybody to my mother, because my mother, being raised in Alcoholics Anonymous, I saw what she did. And if you didn't do it that way, then you weren't a good sponsor. So I had to smash that idea. That was an old idea I had to smash, but I didn't do it for a little bit because I kept changing sponsors, and I do this step with one and that step with this one and that step. So I was in all of them out of order, But since then, I've done them all in order a couple times. So I'm getting ready to, I'm out by the pool with my sister, and the squirrel cage is going. I have a million different things. I have all these debts. I have all this stuff going on. I have no money. What am I going to do? And she said, have you taken the third step? And I was like, no. And she goes, you know what? Let's take the third step. So we got on our knees and we said the prayer. And that was my first spiritual experience, because something happened that day. When I got up from my knees, I was different. I knew that my life wasn't mine anymore. I knew that I needed help and I wanted help, and the peace of God just hit me. So I fire a sponsor, and now I'm like, my sister's telling me to do this 4th step and write this stuff, and I'm doing it. And what I couldn't tell her, I told my best friend, and then we burned it, and it was just a mess. I was just a mess. And so I thought, well, I better do this with someone else. And so I got this other sponsor, and she said, okay, I want you to write your life story. And you know what? I just had a conniption. I was like, that's not how you do it. I don't want to write my life story. That's ridiculous. I want to do this and these columns and do it this way and blah, blah, blah. And for one, I thought, you know what? Do something different. Just do something different. And so as I was writing my life story, so much came out that I wouldn't have remembered if I hadn't written it. So it was following that instruction to do something I didn't want to do. I got a result that I didn't know that was going to eventually save my life. That it was teaching me to do something different. And so I did that, and and then I went in my room and I locked myself in my room for 2 days, because I wanted to get some relief from all the other stuff that kept me running and gunning and running hard, because it was still there. I may not have the obsession with alcohol, but I still have nothing between me and that drink. So I lock myself in my room and I start writing these columns the way she told me to, writing my life story, doing all of these things. And I had this one person that I was coming to, and I was like, I can't do that person. I can't do that person. And this person was the last relationship I was in before I showed up at your door, and this relationship was volatile. He was my drug dealer becoming my boyfriend, and it was just not a good situation at all. And so I kept putting that on the back burner because I didn't want to deal with it. I just kept pushing it aside and going on with my other work. And after I was done, and there was that one person, I'm like, I'm just going to lay down. I just can't. I can't. And I laid down for a minute, and I had this peace that came over me. And it was almost like an audible voice that said, you can do this. I'm with you. So I got up. I did it. And I felt like I was free to leave my room at this point, because at that time, I I still knew in the back of my mind that working the 12 steps was going to help me, that it was going to help me to relieve me from the bondage of self, but I didn't know it was the bondage of self. I just felt like I was tied up. So I got up and, I walked out and my mom's like, "You're glowing." Something that happened in that room. I can't explain it. My second spiritual experience, And as I look back at all these little spiritual experiences that I've gotten over the years, has built my faith. Has built my faith into believing something that was greater than me to keep me away from that drink. So I go on to do the 5th step and 6 and 7 with one sponsor, 8 and 9 with another, and all of those things that I did with all the craziness. But when it came down to making amends, that one person, I was just like, oh my God, like, I can't do it. I can't do it. I cannot do it. And I prayed, I'm like, okay, I feel like I can do all these amends. I don't think I can do this one, And the next morning, I got a text from this person that apologized to me, that wished me well, that said, I hope you have a good life, and blah, 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 blah. And that was God telling me I didn't need to go back there. That was like my confirmation that the amends took place, that I didn't need to do that. So that was another spiritual experience I have, and I've had numerous ones. I've learned that, in this program I have to suit up and show up. I have to say yes when I don't want to say yes. I have sponsees that have sponsees. They are active, I am active. But one of the things that doesn't stop is the churning in my brain. I learned not, Walter Hall says it best, don't go up there for the answers, and I hear that a lot because that's my husband's sponsor. So I get sponsored by Walter whether he knows it or not. But there's so much freedom I have today that I never knew I could have. There is, even through the difficulties of times, and one of the beautiful things about this program is, I just told someone earlier, move a muscle, change a thought. I have to constantly be in action. If I'm sitting on the couch trying to figure it out, that's not a step. I'm not in action. I'm not moving forward because I cannot figure it out. And when I'm spinning and I call someone or I go to a meeting, I always believe that God shows up in skin. And I hear, sometimes what I want to hear, sometimes what I don't want to hear, some things that I need to hear. Whatever it is, I always get something, and I always walk out knowing that, God was there. Alcoholics Anonymous has showed me a God and helped me to discover this God that I love. And I said earlier, I don't understand. I do not understand. But one thing, God is faithful, I was able to meet my husband, and we have a wonderful, wonderful marriage, And I have wonderful friends and fellowship, and the fellowship has grown up amongst me, for sure. I got to Texas, I didn't know a soul. But I showed up to you, and you embraced me. And that is a gift, a complete gift. On December 13th, in the wee hours of the morning, my husband and I were with my son and his wife and our grandkids. We went to the Houston Zoo lights, and we had a wonderful time. And we got home, we were exhausted, we went to bed. And we hear someone pounding at the door, so of course my husband gets up to go to the door. And then I hear someone yelling. And so I get up to see what's going on, and my my son's yelling. He's like, "I'm so sorry, Mama. I'm so sorry." And I'm like, "What? What?" And he couldn't tell me. And then eventually he told me that my youngest son overdosed on fentanyl that night. And that changed my life. That changed me forever. Absolutely forever. My heart is broken. But thank God for my husband, Alcoholics Anonymous, my family. We left that morning. We got on the first flight out to California because that's where my son was. And I had so many phone calls from the women in Alcoholics Anonymous reaching out to me. I knew I wasn't alone. I knew I was absolutely not alone. At the funeral home, I picked my head up, and one of the ladies that goes to my ladies' meeting, the Port Ladies group, was there. She flew from Texas to be there. God and I will get drunk, but you, God, and I will stay sober. And I know that. I know that in the beginning it says the fellowship is a substitute, and it is. Dive in, get involved. That's what I did, and it was a good substitute. But I had to start getting into action. I had to put something between me and that drink because I wanted to stay sober. I was experiencing things that I hadn't experienced. I wanted to do something different. I wanted to have, the life that I saw women in Alcoholics Anonymous have. And I've been able to have that life, My first job was at HEB. I was checking groceries. I was bagging groceries. And I remember getting my check, and I was like, oh my God, I used to make this in an hour, But it showed me how to be workers among workers. And you showed me to just be of service. So we went to that job, and I was like, I'm just going to be of service. I'm going to bag these groceries. I'm going to check out this community, and I'm going to be a part of. That's what you showed me. And all of that ego, of course it would rise up, like, what am I doing here bagging groceries? But you know what? The other thought is that, when I'm being of service. And when I'm in service, that's when I feel the best. That's when I feel whole, And the self-centered fear, I think Bill talks about it in, I think the 12 and 12. That self-centered fear is the chief activator of my character defects, which is the selfish, self-centered. And I can hear my sponsor, she's like, you're a self-centered little bee, And I'm not much, but all I think about, right? I've had some wonderful people in my life, and one of my sponsors, I remember her telling me, I don't care what you think, and I don't care what you believe. And I was like, okay. Until she got to, I don't care how you feel. And I was like, what? Care how I feel? Don't you know my life revolves around how I feel? Every step I take is how I feel. Not so much anymore, because I don't believe the lie anymore. Because I used to wake up, self, how are you feeling today? And act on whatever I was feeling, any delusion I was thinking, anything that I talked myself into believing. And through prayer and meditation, through showing up, I've been, not relieved of it, but I know what to do with it now. I know that it's a lie. I know that I don't have to act on the lie. I know that my feelings are going to change because they're just that. Feelings, they're not facts. The miracle has happened in my life. And it talks about it in this book that, that a miracle will happen, that I won't, be obsessed with alcohol, that I could go anywhere, anytime, and it be around and not notice. Last night we were at a concert, and it was a singer-songwriter, and he had this little cup of whiskey, and he was sipping it. I didn't even notice it, but we were talking about it on the way home. And the person in the back seat, my husband's BFF, he's like, I was just waiting for him, just chug it. What are you doing? you know? And I was like, yeah, I get that. I get that. But I have a life that's worth living today. I do. Even through all the heartache, all the joy, all the pain, all of it, you know, I know that I'm on this path, you know, and I'm so grateful that, you know, I get to, you know, work with sponsees. You know, God brought me a sponsee after, like almost directly after my son died. And I was like, I don't know if I can do this, you know, I'm into me, it's all about me. And God says, here's a gift. And you know what? That girl saved my life. She did. She saved my life. And that I'm totally grateful. I want to read something out of the book, just a little passage in Bill's story before I close, because it kind of sums up my life. And it's Bill's story. And it says, we commenced to make many fast friends, and a fellowship has grown up amongst us, of which it is a wonderful thing to feel a part. The joy of living we really have, even under pressure and difficulty. That tells me, you know, even under pressure and difficulty, it's going to be okay. That, you know, my God is always bigger. He's always bigger than me, you know, and he shows up. And usually he shows up in skin, and it's you. That's all I have. Thank you.